Sometimes in life we just suffer. Sometimes it's from being totally withdrawn, or so much stress that we are totally anxious, or so tired that we are totally burnt out. But our current position is not our final destination. No, indeed. There's hope. So whether it's your personal life, your career, your relationship, your business, or your job, we say there's reason to believe again. And we present from Andy's personal development, the breakout room. It's the place for health, happiness, and prosperity. Stay tuned for more. Hey, and welcome to this edition of the Breakout Room. I am your host, Andy Charles, and we thank you so much for spending time with us in the past. We're coming to the end of 2024, and this has been a year of wonderful experiences and great achievements as far as not only our podcasting is concerned, but the work that we've been doing with so many people around the world. So, without further ado, this episode is entitled Your Character is Your Calling with Mark Collins. And he's right here with us in the studios. Let me just tell you a bit about our guest for a moment. He is a business and a life coach and the founder of Freedom for Life LLC, and author of the transformational leadership book, Life Mastery, Living Life by Design, Not by Default. Mark has developed and launched his Life Mastery online course and has seen hundreds of lives transformed. He's also had the privilege of speaking at conferences throughout the Western US, and he's a coach, husband, father, and an author. He says, "My passion and expertise are in guiding people, several hundred and counting, in overcoming the fear, uncertainty that is standing in the way of the life they are created for." Another wonderful and important thing to note about this gentleman is that he's a passionate pastor and he has over 20 years of ministry experience and has dedicated his life to guiding Christian men towards their divine purpose. And he brings to the table a wealth of experience and insight into overcoming fear and uncertainty through biblical teachings. I know that's a lot, but that's what the man is about. So without further ado, let's introduce our guest live in the breakout room, Mark Collins. Welcome, Mark.
Thank you, Andy. It's great being here.
It's great having you here, and we appreciate you, and we thank you so much. So let's begin by looking at you, the individual,
Yeah.
and the current work that you are doing. If you were to describe what you're doing currently with regards to your calling and your purpose, how would you describe it so that people would understand who Mark Collins is and the impact that he's looking to make further on people in this life?
That's great question, Andy. What I tell people is this: my role and my joy is to help you to unlock and unleash your hero inside in your business, relationships, and life. Really unpacking the person you're created to be so that you can have the life that you're created for and overcome whatever's standing in the way, whether it's fear of failure or imposter syndrome. Those are a couple of areas where I was challenged, and you know, those things that are stopping you from believing that you can actually achieve it. You know, most times it's not other people and the circumstances that are standing in the way of our success, but our belief in ourselves that's doing it. So I help people to have tools and strategies to unlock that hero in hiding so that they can see that person lived out.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing, Mark. And how is it that your experience from your personal life have helped you now to bring it into that clinical experience where the combination of that experience plus your expertise is helping people who are experiencing the same things that you would have overcome in the past?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it really comes from my own transformational journey. You
Hmm.
know, my course, Life Mastery, or I wrote that book, Life Mastery, Living Life by Design, Not by Default. I tell people they weren't great strategies and ideas I had to help other people in their life. It was my own life lived out, really
Yeah.
going from being a insecure young man, believing that I had a father that I couldn't measure up to, or trying to find success in business, or trying to use personal development that brought change in habit but didn't bring transformation. I had this journey that I walked on and really trying to figure out, how do I really unpack and am able to really find the way for that person I believed I could be on the inside to show up on the outside with confidence, with assurance, with
Hmm.
passion, not holding back, not stopping because of fear or worry, but really engaging passionately in the things that I desired. So for me, it started with that journey of figuring it out for myself. And in that place, as you know, Andy, whenever you find something you're excited
Yeah.
about or you think is
Yes.
amazing, you share it with people you know. And so it
Yes.
started with, you know, specific nuggets and ideas and thoughts that I shared with other people to help them in their own lives. And then what I found out, which was amazing, Andy, is that it wasn't a me journey, but a we journey. In that, I thought, you know, I was the only one. I was the only one waking up at 3 in the morning, worried and stressed about finances, about relationship, about business, whatever. But I found out that it was a common journey of a lot of people that I had relationship with. And so I
Hmm.
wanted to create a strategy, a system, what I call the blueprint to freedom, so
Yes.
that you could, instead of, you know, individual nuggets and helping you out in places and parts of your life, to really be able to have an all-encompassing course or strategy for you to be able to live it out. And so that's where Life Mastery came from, was really trying to encapsulate my whole journey. I am a person of faith, so the biblical understandings and instructions on
Hmm.
how to become the person you're created to be, really creating a system for people that they could engage in, that they could invest in, and find that they could go from wherever they were at to the life
Yes.
that they were created for.
Wonderful. I love that. Thank you for that response, Mark. So tell me a bit about the childhood experience in terms of having that father figure that was overpowering and having to, was there some level of trauma involved in that process, Mark? And how did you feel emotionally in terms of your level of self security and well being? How did it affect you?
Yeah, that's a great question. I
Thank
think,
you.
you know, I think there wasn't any specific trauma, but you know, for me, I think that every young man wants to feel like they're measuring up to their dad.
Yeah.
And the challenge when you have a strong, you know, willed dad, or, you know, whatever level, you could have an abusive one, you could have one who wasn't there. But, you know, as a young man, you always want to feel like you're measuring up as a man,
Hmm.
that you are
Yes.
qualified for, you know, being trusted and being acknowledged and being encouraged. And in that place, it wasn't necessarily that there was trauma, you know, though my dad was stern, and it was back in the days where, you know, punishment for a child meant something physical,
Hmm.
but not
Yeah.
necessarily to the abusive level. But it was always that place of, I don't feel like I'm good enough. And so the outcome of that is trying to measure up in other ways. Or, you know, what I tell people is, you do one of the other, you try and confirm what you've been told or you believe, or you try and disprove it.
Yes.
Confirming it, you go down the road of abuse and, you know, addictions and all of those things that maybe you're doing to, you know, they say I'm a failure, I guess I am, so I'm going to live this life. Well, the other side is true also, where people will, and that was my side, whereas I'll prove you wrong. I'll prove
Mm.
that I have value and worth. And for me, it was doing that through business development, through academics, getting my college degree, through athletics, getting my black belt in martial arts.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing was, it was beyond my father. It was really overcoming that fear of failure, you know, and in some ways that fear of disappointment. But in that place, here's the interesting thing, Andy, that many people who are successful find out, especially a lot of the people I work with. The same fear and worry you had at the bottom of that hill, you have at the
Hmm.
mountaintop.
Yes.
We think
Yes.
that, and I thought it in my own life, success is going to overcome everything. Once once I get there, then everything's going to be okay.
Yes.
I'll be engaged. I'll feel
Hmm.
passionate. I'll feel confident in everything I do, because now
Uh-huh.
I've done stuff. But the truth of the matter is, the person you are in the beginning is the person you'll be at the end, apart from a transformational journey. So with
Wow.
me, it was
Yeah.
really trying to figure out how to unpack that and really
Yeah.
overcome that in my own life. And then obviously afterwards help others.
Yeah, hats off to you, Mark. You have done some things that has helped shape your character in terms of educating yourself and seeing
Yeah.
things from a more positive perspective in terms of your self value and your worth. And that, of course, has helped you to create the individual that you have become today. In terms of the transition period, what was it like for you to come to the conclusion mentally, make that mental shift that I am worth more than what people are saying or people think? And I'm going to do whatever it takes or is necessary to prove myself right, not
Hmm.
necessarily what they're saying, but yourself right. How was that transitionary period for you mentally, and how can you pass that on to others as a means by which they can make that transitional shift in their lives from the negative to the positive?
Yeah, that is a great question, Andy. And it's interesting
Wonderful.
because
Thank you.
even as a young, I'm a teenager, young adult,
Mm-hmm.
the thing that was driving me wasn't I'm going to prove them wrong or
Yeah.
I'm going to show them up, I'm going to show them I'm something. It
Yeah.
really was that internal understanding. If you're a spiritual person, it's that spirit on the inside, I believe. But I didn't know what it was at the time. But there was this thing on the inside saying there was more than the life I was living.
Right.
There's more than the decisions I was making, the actions I was taking, all of those things that I was doing in my own life. And so it wasn't it wasn't that I believed people for a period of time, although you act like you do. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and then it suddenly transitioned. It was that there was this sense of who I could be on the inside, that
Yes.
hope and that desire to be that person, that the better version of myself, if you will. And then using all sorts of mechanisms to figure it out. Again, it was, business, it was athletics, it was academics, it was, the outside things trying to, when I get that title, when I get that role, when I get that job, when I get that level of income, now all of a sudden I'll be a person of worth and value, which is where the title of our conversation comes from. Many times we look at those things. In fact, most of the time, it's our title, our role, it's how much money I have in the
Mm-hmm.
bank, it's the
Yeah.
possessions I have, right? It's those things in my life, it's the fame, it's the glory, it's those things that other people give me. Now I'm a person of value. It's really what we call in the work I do your identity. You either know who you're created to be, or your world has to make up the difference.
Mm-hmm.
And then that
Yeah.
place you reach out for those things. And what I
Yeah.
invite people into understanding is it's not your outside outcomes that make who you are. It's your identity that creates those outcomes. When we're
Yes.
living for those things to prove and validate who we are, we'll always feel lacking and always have to have more. When you live from who you are, now all of a sudden, that's, as the heading of my website says, that's you unleashed, and that's something that's not only powerful but amazingly fulfilling. So it was
Mm.
really living from that place, and it started from just being a young person trying to figure it out, and trying to find the ways that the world says, take on those natural personal developments, read those books, create go through those courses, do all of those things, and that plus the academics, the athletics, the entrepreneurship still left me feeling the same on the inside. It was only in really starting to unpack identity, and in that place realizing that, as I tell the people I work with, you either live from who you're created to be or what your life has told you. Everybody has a life that's told them things about themselves,
Yeah.
how well they can do, the relationships they can have, how important or unimportant they are, right? Your life has got something that tells you who you are. It's the experiences you walk through. But when you live from who you're created to be, your experiences are allowed to just be experiences, not identity statements. And your accomplishments are allowed to be outcomes of who you are, not things that you use to create who you are.
Wow. Uh, that was a clinic, Mark. I appreciate that. I appreciate it. But you really, really holistically focus on the details and honing on the things that really matter in terms of finding yourself, evaluating who you are from the inside, and helping that to allow you to find your purpose or your calling. I appreciate that so much. So I just want to play a short video and you can have color commentary after. Uh,
As
Here
we
we go.
talk about in the life mastery journey, life isn't supposed to happen to you. You're supposed to happen to it. God's created you, equipped you, given you gifts and talents and abilities so that you're the response to the life you're walking into. A lot of times we're on a defensive, and so stuff comes at us and we're not ready for it, and trying to figure out who we are and what we're supposed to do, and then we're ready to respond.
Here we go.
Yeah, absolutely. The thing I tell people that I work with is you're the answer to the circumstance you're walking into. You're not the question to be figured out. Many times
Right,
we're the
right.
question to be figured out. I don't know if I can succeed. I don't know if I can find the answers. I don't know if I can do this. Right? Those mental gymnastics you do, the arm wrestling match on the inside where you're trying to believe beyond what you really believe. You're trying to silence those voices in your head saying that you're going to fail and what have you. And the truth of the matter is you're the answer. It's who you are. Your character's your calling. It's not something I have to maintain. It's not something I have to gain. It's not a skill set I have to learn. Right? You can have all those things and they really help you in the things that you're doing. But the truth of the matter is there's one irreplaceable element, and it's you. It's your character, it's your value, it's your worth, it's your passion, it's your integrity. It's the person planted in the midst of the circumstance. That's the answer waiting to happen. As a person of faith, throughout all of the Bible, every person that's talked about in there, they are all placed in circumstances where they are the answer. You never are equipped once you get there. You've been equipped, and that's why you're there. And
Yeah.
so for your relationships or your business, your life, many times we doubt ourselves and then we hesitate and then we wait and then we hold back and then we only reach out so far. What my desire is for people to understand is that no, you are the answer. When
Hmm.
you walk in fully confident, now
Yeah.
all of a sudden solutions happen quickly and your emotions align with empowering actions and you're able to live out the life you're created for with ease. I call it effortless excellence.
Okay.
It doesn't mean challenges don't happen and things don't come up. What it does mean is when I'm living from who I am, now all of a sudden things align and I'm not hindering myself from success. I'm actually escalating and accelerating my success.
Yes. Yes. Wonderful. Wonderful. I just want to share something with us on the screen now. Let me see if I can find it. Oh, yes, this is it here. And this is the book that you have written, Mark. And I want you to tell us what is the inspiration behind this publication and how did you come up with that amazing cover?
Well, first off, the inspiration, to be totally honest, Andy, was my mother.
Okay.
Um,
Okay.
I was fully invested in the things that I'm doing and helping people and the courses that I'm using to do so and conversations and podcasts, of course, and speaking engagements. And my mom told me she's my biggest fan. She passed away in April, but before that, she always would watch all of my speaking
Mm.
engagements, would encourage
My
me, would talk on a
condolences.
weekly basis. Thank you, I appreciate it.
Yeah.
But she told me one time, she said, "Hey, you should write a book." And you write about, well, at least for me, I write about what
Mm.
I'm passionate about. I'm not looking to spend time doing things that don't have value. So I write about what I'm passionate about. And so this book is really what I call the quick start guide to your life mastery journey. It doesn't have all of
Yes.
the bells and whistles and all of the in-depth strategies and all of those things that the course has, but there's nuggets in each chapter that you can use, take away, and have an understanding of how I can engage this week. How can I use this strategy this week and find transformation this month? So, and that title, the cover itself, I couldn't take credit for that. It was something where I worked with other people to try and find something that would encapsulate you coming out of a place of bondage or stress or anxiety towards the freedom in your life, towards the life that you're created for. And so that's what the picture shows. And the title, Living Life by Design, Not by Default, that's really an encapsulation of what I see in all of our lives. Many times we're living by default, not because of any bad thing that we're doing or ignorance that we have, but because we don't understand that there's a different way. We
Okay.
manage our emotions, we're managing stress and anxiety, we're trying to live the best we can, overcome our stress and our disbelief in ourselves with our outcomes, and we think that that's the only way. So because of that, you use what you know. But in the title, the Life by Design is really understanding, no, but there are strategies and tools that you can use so that you don't have to manage your emotions, but you can actually master them, and in that way you can master your life.
Wow. Wonderful. Thank you for sharing, Mark.
Absolutely.
What Yeah, what kind of response have you gotten from the publication? What is the feedback that you are getting? What are people saying about the
Huh.
impact that it is having on their lives?
Well, there's been a couple of things, Andy, and
Uh-huh.
the most interesting thing is, to be totally honest, I wrote the book not expecting anybody to care,
Okay.
because I do audible books and those kind of things. I feed myself in those types of ways, but I can't tell you the last time I read a tangible book, had a book in my hand, other than the Bible. I because I spent years doing it, but I thought in this generation with all that we have to learn from, that books don't matter. But I got a lot of positive response on just being able to author a book and people feeling proud of me, which was super awesome. And then from the impact, what I try to do somewhat in the course that you don't always get the ability to do is kind of let people in on your life. And so with the book, it wasn't just those nuggets that can bring transformation. It was really being able to kind of share moments and snapshots of my life, so they start to understand the author. The
Yeah.
last thing I
Yeah.
want people to believe, Andy, is that Mark's perfect, and if we do the things he tells us to do, we'll be perfect. I want them
Hmm.
to know that this is hard fought experience that comes from my own transformational journey. It's not something that I'm trying to stand on a pedestal and say, you need to be like me and this is how you do it, but really let them know that I've been down this road. I understand what I call that blueprint to freedom, not because it's an outward strategy that I've used for other people, but because it's an inward strategy that first started with myself. So being able to tell those stories, they start to see, oh, his life wasn't perfect either. Me, and hopefully in that, they start to believe that, oh, okay, well, we're both have imperfect backgrounds, but that means I can do it also.
Okay. Yes. Yes. Wonderful. Wonderful. Okay. Great. So let's just shift gears a bit, Mark. In terms of being a man of faith, how significant is that with regards to the building of your character and, of course, your calling, which you have stepped up to and embrace at this
Yeah.
moment?
Well, I think, at least for me, it's everything.
Uh huh.
The very foundation of everything we do is it starts with identity. And what I tell the people that I work with is who you believe you are, you'll become. And if your picture of who you are comes from who you're created to be, then you're more easily going to find those levels of life that you're created for. When your
Okay.
picture of your life is from what your life has told you, there's going to be limiting factors. There's going to be disempowering emotions. There's going to be struggles and challenges that are holding you back from that complete and amazing life that you have. And so for me, the unpacking of it really starts with unpacking the understanding that I've been created on purpose, I should say. I'm not just here on accident. It's just not
Hmm.
just a
Yeah.
happenstance that a man
Yeah.
met a woman, had a baby, and that baby just
Mm.
happens to be me. That maybe there's uniqueness to who you are. And so for me,
Right.
that all comes from faith. And to be totally honest, the instructions that we have are all based on biblical scriptures and understanding and unpacking the instructions that were given from that.
Okay.
Interesting thing, Andy, is I tell people I work with people who are people of faith, who are Christians, and people who are not. And the truth of the matter is, as I tell the people I work with, the tools and strategies work even if you don't know the author. But when you do, now all of a sudden there's a depth of understanding that comes from it, and there's an ease of understanding and implementing it in your life that can't be, it can't be duplicated.
Right. Yes. I agree. I agree. Wow. So, in terms of freedom for life, tell us a bit about that and when it started, and what was the moment that you realized this is what I need to do, and you got it going. What was that experience like for you, Mark?
Yeah, well, Freedom for Life is the overarching umbrella organization under which I have my
Mm-hmm.
courses, Life
Yeah.
Mastery being one of them, and then I have the book. And it really is me wanting to create what I call a business ministry, a
Okay.
business that I'm using to develop and help other people in the things that they're doing. And my wife and I have had businesses before. That business that we were talking about, the success that we had, was really our fifth business. And much
Okay.
like other people, the first thing you do doesn't always work, but you always learn from it.
Right.
So opening businesses and having a business was something that was easy to do, but Freedom for Life was really specifically designated for personal development coaching, mentoring, and the tools that I use for that. And it my whole desire in doing all of these things, it wasn't just sharing them because, wow, this worked for me and it's amazing and I want it to work for people that I care about. It was seeing in other people that same journey, that same fear of failure, imposter syndrome, anxiety, worry, stress, or whatever the things that people have struggled with, and seeing in them those struggles that I had, that desperation, the desperation and wanting to be better than the things that were happening in your life and the person that was showing up, and in my own life desiring for people to know that when I first became a person of faith, when I first became a Christian, I had experiences of God. The thing I said internally in myself that caused me to become a pastor was saying, if people only had the experiences with God that I did, their whole life would change. And it was my desire to do that. And it's the same with the life mastery tools and strategies and course that we have. And that's why I created Freedom for Life, because in the inside and just in myself, I had this convincing conversation where if you only had these tools and strategies, you wouldn't have to be frustrated or desperate. You'd be able to have the life that you're created for. That desperation would lead to amazing fulfillment. And so it was under that organization that I started to build the tools to help people do that, because I believe it's needed by everyone. And I wanted to at least have the resources available so that anyone who needed it would find it.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you for sharing, Mark. In terms of the balance between spirituality, no, I should not use spirituality. Let me be more specific. Let's look at people of faith,
Okay.
people who personally believe in God, trust in God, have a relationship with God, because spirituality is a more broader, generic term.
Yeah.
How do these people, in terms of that balance between relationship with God by faith and business, what are the tools that you use them to help create that balance so that one does not really overwork the other and then there's an imbalance and a negative result, but you help them gain that balance? I sense that from what you just said, from your personal experience, and also create an opportunity for them to understand how important both are, and at the same time it helps them to develop their character and of course their calling.
Yeah, that's a great question, Andy. And so the title, of course, is Your Characters Are Calling, the
Thank you.
title of this
Thank
conversation.
you.
But the interesting thing is that what I tell
Yeah.
people is who you are in one place is who you are in another. A lot of times, to be totally honest, sometimes we're
Okay.
one person at church and another person in business or life or other areas of our life. And what I tell people is from that life mastery perspective, who you are in one is who you are in the other. Your passion, your character, your vision, your guidance, your love, your this, all the things that you are. And so in that place, it's not a balance between the two. It's showing up as you're created to be in all of them. So in my relationship with God, it's really showing up in that place. A person who feels like they aren't measuring up in their home or with their family or with their father is the same person many times that feels like they're not measuring up with God. And there's this hindrance to relationship because of past experiences. And so when I understand who I am, when I live from who I'm created to be, all of a sudden I can have that relationship I'm created for, not just with people around me, but with my God.
Yes.
And in that place, it starts to become a relationship. You stop becoming a servant and you start to become a son or a daughter. And so there's really no difference, because the same integrity I use at, my relationship with God is the same with business.
Okay.
And for us, Life Master, we one of the things we unpack is letting people know Life Mastery happens in 5 spheres: the spiritual, relational, vocational, physical, and financial. I believe that you could put in these 5 buckets all of life. They happen in all of these areas. And so Life Mastery to us is understanding, okay, well, who are you created to be? And if you can become the person you're created to be at the highest level you're created for in all of those 5 areas, you'll have a life that is amazingly fulfilling for you and blessing for everybody who knows you. And so for us, it really isn't kind of balancing all of those. It's saying, okay, in the spiritual realm with your relationship with God, what is not only the person you're created to be in that relationship, what is the highest level of relationship you can have there? The highest level of intimacy and value and worth and authenticity, and in that place where it says in the Bible about Moses that he walked with him as with his best friend. He was a friend of God.
Yeah.
Or David, where it talks about him, right? The one thing that described him, he was a man after God's own heart.
Yes.
What level of life could you live? What life mastery and identity could you walk in that would create that level of relationship? And it's the same with all of them. In the financial or vocational is really business or job, right? Who are you created to be? Is it a person who works in a factory, or as a teacher, or as an executive, or whatever the job is? There are people in all levels of life that impact the rest of the world, not because they have a title, but because of who they are. So who is that person? Is it a business? Are you meant to create something? Are you meant to develop something? Are you meant to produce a product that helps lives, right? Neither one of them is better than the other, and neither one of them is fulfilling unless it's me being called out. I can't live somebody else's dream and feel fulfilled. I can only live my own. And so in a
Yes.
business or in your job or your vocation, what does that look like? So for us, it's not looking externally at those things and saying, how do I balance all of those in my life and be, whatever, but it's saying, how can I unleash me in those areas? Why was I created? And at what level of life can I have in those areas? Because I know that, and and probably many people that are hugely successful and dissatisfied with their life. They're miserable as can be because they expected the mountaintop to be different than the valley. But when I transform you in the valley, the mountaintop is different because now I'm living at the level he's called me to live at. And in
Yes.
that place, having the impact in the world that I'm supposed to. And so that's what we try and focus on.
Right. Wonderful. So, in terms of the life mastery course, in terms of having someone engage in it, is there a specific period of time, Mark, that you'd want someone to be engaged, like 5 months or 6 months time, so that they get the full aspects of all the five areas of this course?
Yeah, that's a great question. I
Thank
think
you.
so. It's really what I call a self directed course, meaning that so it's not 6 lessons over the next 3 weeks and you
Okay.
get one lesson a week or what have you, right? And
Okay.
the reason is that people develop in different ways and they have to stop at different points. Not stop because they're stopping development, but because they need to go deeper in areas to be able to unleash
Mhm.
themselves. We talk about identity, who you're created to be. And if you don't live from who you're created to be, it's what your life has told you. Many of us, our life has told us things. And so I can't run through a bunch of lessons until I start to unpack some lies I believed and bring some truth to it. So what I tell people is you can have some miraculous moments within the course. And when I talk to you about mastering your thoughts and who you think you are, you'll become. And if you want to change the life that you're living, you need to change the thoughts that you're thinking. If they're not aligned with who God says you are, then they're lying to you. Simply by me telling my students that, the people I work with, those things, all of a sudden it becomes a bit of an explosion on the inside. Now they find out that, oh,
Yes.
these are tangible tools I can actually use to change my life. It's not just generic philosophies and ideas that I
Mhm.
say over and
Mhm.
over again, hoping that they'll come to pass, but there's tools I can use to actually see that person show up. So there's miraculous moments where you can see transformation in your life that impacts the rest of your life. But the course itself, we have 14 lessons, it's 7 hours of teaching. And what I tell people is the goal isn't finishing, the goal is transformation. So I would hate for people to rush through all of the lessons and have a surface level transformational journey because I thought I was supposed to complete it. I didn't know I was supposed to go deep in it. So the journey can last as long as you want. I'm still on a life mastery journey. I'm still finding levels of growth and change and development that I'm supposed to be, right? You live at levels and you live at elevations that you're called to, but those are always increasing. If my life isn't growing and developing more and more throughout my life, then it's probably not the life I'm supposed to live. So long story short, there's 14 lessons, 7 hours of teaching. If you're an all-in kind of person, you can get through it in a period of time. But again, the goal is transformation. I don't want you to finish and find that you've just completed a course but never been transformed. So if you
Yeah.
engage in the tools and you use them accurately, within weeks and months, you'll start to find that your life is totally changed, that your outlook and your understanding of not just what things have been drivers in your life, but how you can change them to make them strategies for fulfillment. You can find those things and you can implement them in your life. And then you grow
Yes.
from there. It's a journey that has miraculous moments of transformation in it.
Wonderful. Thank you, Mark. I appreciate that. Thank you for the value of that. You have coached hundreds of people and mentored others as well over the years as a pastor, as a business coach, and combining the two together, being very effective. Are there any outstanding experiences that you would have had where you would have seen that level of transformation in people's lives and they come back and they say, Pastor or Mark, however they choose to address you, thank you so much. This thing has really made a difference in my life. There are some
Yeah.
instances where the experience that we've had with people that we have coached and mentored just stand out in our minds, and it helps us. It reminds us of how much more we need to do. And as you alluded to, you have to continue growing every day.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, there's many people that come to mind. In general, what I tell people is I love the people I work with because a lot of times we choose not to do those uncomfortable things of unpacking those challenges and issues that are stopping us from the life we're created for. We sometimes build a level of comfort around managing our life, not mastering it, and so
Mm.
we find those challenges, that we could potentially overcome, but we don't. But I love the bravery of the people I work with, that they're vulnerable enough to be dealing with the hard things in their life to be able to become the people they're created to be. I think of Evelyn, who was a person who started taking the course, and she had family, she had husband, had children, had a career, right? Had her extended family. And so she had a life that, was a quality of life that made people think, but there was this sense of being a person who didn't have value, who didn't have worth, again, in a marriage, with family, with accomplishments, but that internal language and understanding, right? The person on the inside, she felt like she had no value or worth. And so, in being able to unpack some of our life mastery tools and strategies, understanding identity, understanding created value, understanding mastering your thoughts and your words and your actions, she started to see how her past has told her a story that maybe wasn't true. Of course, it
Hmm.
wasn't, but
Yes.
sometimes we don't know that. And in
Hmm.
that place, when she started to see the truth, she started to see value in herself. And not only did she come alive, but so did her relationships. Because when you're not a person of value, you're always looking for ways of in relationships to prove that you're right.
Hmm.
But when you know that you're a person of value, you see the opposite in the same
Yes.
circumstance.
Yes.
And so for her, it allowed her to thrive in her marriage more. It allowed her to thrive in business and her vocation because she
Okay.
could show up as a person she was created to be. If you don't know who you are, the world has to make up the difference, which
Hmm.
means everything has to go my way and every relationship has to be perfect, or I'm dealing with the feeling of insecurity and shame and worry. And so for her, being able to be free of that was an amazing thing, to really come alive as a person because of it. I think of Brett, who was, like me in many ways, a person of business who thought success in business would overcome insecurity, fear of failure. And so for him, he was and is hugely successful in business and in the real estate market and in business ventures. And the thing that most people didn't know was the man who would wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning because there was a big transaction that was supposed to take place, and he was fearful that it was not only going to fail, but he was going to be a failure. And
Wow.
so for him, success in business wasn't really some joy and exciting moment. It was a relief that he didn't fail this time. But it's that what I call hamster wheel of success, where he had to continue to be successful and continue to be successful, but at the same time continue to wrestle with feelings of failure, potential failure, fear of failure, and all those that robbed him of the joy of his life, which impacted
Wow.
family, which impacted relationships, which impacted his own well-being. And so for him, being able to unpack, again, our life tells us something. He's had a life in his past, in his youth, and with people and the things that they said to him that made him believe that he wasn't that good. And when you start to unpack that and realize the lies and impact it with the truth, that he was a person of worth and value, that he had unique gifts and abilities, that he had an impact that was he was created for. Now all of a sudden, not only did his business success increase, but it actually was a joy to be able to have success. It wasn't a diploma. It wasn't a accomplishment that you put on a wall, but you feel no connection to it. But it was him knowing that, wow, this is me lived out. This is who I am on the inside, having an impact in the world. And there's just great joy in that. And as a byproduct, his relationships changed because he wasn't bringing the stress he had home, right? Those times when you think like, oh, I just left it at work, but you're still kind of grumpy, you're still
Wow.
kind of moody, you're still kind of disaffected,
Yeah.
you're still kind of distant because you
Yeah.
are dealing with these things on the inside. Now all of a sudden he was fully engaged at work and business, but he was also fully engaged at home. And there's story after story of people. When you unpack who you are, when you're living from that place, there's this freedom and this lightness in life because I'm not using external things to prove who I am.
Wow. Yeah. Wonderful. Thank you, Mark. We appreciate that and we appreciate you. So we'll just stop for about 30 seconds or so and then we'll both catch our breaths. We just want to share something about our friends at fineradioguest.com. For those of you who are in the live audience and for those of you be watching this later, if you're an author, a speaker, a life coach, and you need to have your profile uplifted and extended online, these are the people that you need to make contact with and ensure that you give them all the information that's pertinent to people finding you out there not just for you to be on their program or a guest on their podcast, but if you're a host of a podcast as well and you're looking for engagement from that perspective, this is the platform for you. Stand by for this. FindRadioGuest.com, the place to click to find guests to interview for free. And if you're a radio show booker, podcaster, talk show host, or television producer, then this is the place to get podcasts and radio interviews or promote your books and products as a guest expert sponsor. FindRadioGuest.com. Check it out. All right. Thank you, our friends at FindRadioGuest.com, and they will help you do all your promotions with regards to your profile being online out there and in the right places where people may contact with you either for your speaking, writing, or your podcasting services. So we have Mark Collins with us live in the breakout room. This episode entitled Your Character is Your Calling, and we have covered so many different areas of that. Thank you, Mark, for being an engaging and informative guest. We have about 4 minutes to go, so I just want to show this last video. It's about 41 seconds, and then we'll have Mark comment and we'll seek to wrap up.
What if the struggles and issues and challenges, what if the things that are coming against you right now are really just challenges? What if the challenge in your life is just a challenge? It's not a conversation from God. It's not a point that he's trying to make that you're doing something wrong, and for that he's punishing you. See, I believe this, that God is greater than the challenges that will come against us, and he's more loving than we know. But sometimes we look at our past and our parents and we think that God is the same way, and that was the way it was in my life, where my dad was the punisher, right? It was that conversation when I would be doing something growing up, my mom would utter these words that scared us to death. You just wait till your father gets home.
Wow. Amazing, amazing. Let's hear your comments on that, Mark.
Yeah, absolutely. So here's the interesting thing that is amazing about God is that he creates, I believe, fathers and mothers to show aspects of who he is. And so as a child growing up, you learn first from your parents what it looks like to have a loving father, a protective father, a father that had strength and brought all those things that you needed in your life. And I believe it's a transition of understanding who God is through your parents, your earthly parents, and then being able to have that relationship with him. And so us as fathers, when you're an amazing dad, when you're doing those things that you need to do, and unfortunately we can't be perfect, but the best we can do is to somehow reflect a portion of who God is. And in that place, the transition of relationship for children is easier. My father was loving, so is my God. My father was providing, so is my God. My father is a father of strength and understanding and wisdom, and so is my God. Well, when those things aren't there, when you have a father who's absent, or a father who's maybe abusive, or a father who's disengaged, he's not there for you, and all of a sudden you believe that's who God is. And so for me, that was that case of everything I did wrong was because, or everything that went wrong in my life was because I was being punished by God. And many times it really is just the life that you're living.
Yeah.
Life just happens. And why, while it's not a plan of God for those things to happen, it is a plan of God to strengthen you through them. But in that place of relationship, when I can separate who God is, when I can understand him through his word, when I can disengage from what my past has told me about other people and myself, sometimes we don't allow love because we don't feel worthy of love. And so in the place when you start to, again, live from who you're created to be, not what your life has told you, you'll find value and worth in yourself. And in that place, you'll find an open relationship that means that I can be loved, I can be trusted, I can trust him, and we can have this relationship of honesty, separating from my parents and separating from my past. And in that place, seeing him accurately and completely for who he is as a God. And in that place, have the relationship that you desire to have, and obviously that he created for you, because his eternal love through his son, Jesus Christ, allowed for that relationship to happen.
Absolutely. Wonderful. What an amazing note to end this program. We have about 20 seconds, and there's some information up there, Mark. Just tell them how best they can make contact with you, and of course, how they can get copies of that book, that publication.
Yeah, absolutely. The top link is freedom-4-life.net. That is my website, my course, Life Mastery. You can sign up for it there. My book on as an ebook version you can see on my website. I love that because you can take it on every platform you have, phone, iPad, what have you. But you can also get my book on Amazon as a hard copy or paperback, of course. How to get in contact with me, Mark, M-A-R-K, at freedom-for-life.net if you have any direct questions or want understanding of life mastery and how it fits in your life.
Wonderful. Thank you. So there you have it, folks. Our guest has been Mark Collins, and the episode was entitled Your Character is Your Calling. And I'm sure by now, if you have been tuned in, that you would have understood in detail the power of finding your calling in life by embracing the real you on the inside and learning the things that you can do to build and develop your character as an individual and really embrace the life God has intended for you to live on this planet as you represent Him, whether it's as a parent, as a boss, or whatever it is you're intended to do. It's a wonderful thing just to have that experience. Until next time, this is Andy of Andy's Personal Development together with my guest, Mark Collins, saying so long, Godspeed, God bless, Shalom. And remember our three watchwords: we strive for health, happiness, and prosperity. Bye for now, folks. Take care and all the best.